Welcome to Familiar Territory, an anime podcast hosted by two white dudes who've been friends for over 15 years. Here we talk about the history and influence of anime, as well as review anime new and old. So grab your talking cap and transform into some comfy clothes as we step into a familiar territory. My name is Grant.
And I'm Brantley. Heads up, spoilers on the way. Check the description, see if you're safe to listen. Quote the share zone. Just walk out. You can leave. Work, social thing, movies, home, class, dentist, clothes shoppy, too fancy weed store, cops if you're quick, friendships. If it sucks, hit the bricks. Real winners quit. End quote. Grant, what are we talking about today?
Well, I know what we're talking about, but I have no fucking clue where this is going. But we're talking about High Guardian Spice today.
High Guardian Spice. You've probably heard about it already, and if you haven't, good. Don't worry about it. It's fine. You don't have to worry about it. The internet might say, "Hey, you should worry about High Guardian Spice," but don't click that YouTube thumbnail. Don't get attracted by that funny arrow that's pointing to a red circle that's drawn on top of a cartoon, because it probably really doesn't matter at all.
Is that why you're telling people to quit?
Yeah, I think that this review is what we're doing right now is because we do care about High Guardian Spice. For a little bit of intro, it's a Crunchyroll original. It's like a Western developed anime thing, fantasy style, magical girl adjacent, LGBTQIA plus themes. And characters, so like right up our alley, but also it's like dead set in the middle of a lot of controversy. A lot of it I feel is manufactured, and also plenty of it is deserved and ought to be spoken about. But as Grant and I will probably elaborate, the things that we think are interesting to sort of speculate on and discuss with the show are far different than the more like reactionary stuff that's floating around. So if you're here for the reactionary stuff, then find any one of those other like 100,000 videos elsewhere. Get the fuck out. And if you want to hear us stick around and if you want to stick around and hear us talk about like more left leaning things than
Production.
Yeah, and the content of the show, then that's what we're gonna try to hit. So
yeah, when we started watching this, I was like, I hate High Guardian Spice because it's bad. You hate High Guardian Spice because you're transphobic. We are not the same.
Yeah.
High Guardian Spice is one of is like Brantley said, it's the Crunchyroll original, which means that we are about 3 for 4 on Crunchyroll originals that we've watched and did not care for. Going through all of the Crunchyroll originals, they don't have a great track record. I know people like Tower of God, The God of High School. I know some people like So I'm a Spider, So What. I heard Pirate Princess is good, but like I don't give a shit about any of that. I do find it interesting that Crunchyroll originals have their own studios, and the only 3 studios they did, the only 3 shows they've done in their originals are Onyx Equinox, High Guardian Spice, and something called Freak Angels, which hasn't come out yet. But it's weird to me that they're so okay using other animation studios, and they'll get things like Mappa and Production IG, but they also get whoever the fuck made Gibiate, which is 2 unknown animation studios. I just want to know what makes them decide to be like, you don't get Mappa. Sorry, you don't. But you can have these guys. I'm just curious as to what decision they're having to go and create all of this. Like, Inspector got Brains Base, which, fuck, they made a couple things we know. Mm-hmm. But it's like you don't hear about them.
Mm-hmm. If I can nestle myself far back into my armchair, I'm gonna guess that the answer that you're looking for is data. That data says that this show will be this popular, this show will be that popular, and therefore where do we allocate our, production budget? Who can we afford with that? And then going from there.
That's fair. That makes sense. I don't like that answer. I was hoping it would be something sneaky and scary, but that one is probably the boring, correct.
Well, the sneaky
answer.
And scary part is the capitalism undergirding of the whole thing, right?
Gotcha.
Like it's this puts us in a weird position, I think, because like this is as like emergent LGBTQIA plus media. It's something that we want to see succeed, and we want to succeed well. But we also want to support like smaller creators and people getting in for their first time, right? Which potentially causes this like this hitch where in order for some people to really enjoy something that's like progressive, they want it to also be like highly effectively produced, which then nestles it very nicely into like big money, big corporate production.
Right.
And so you kind of don't get both very easily. And usually exploitation's happening on sort of both ends there. And so it's just kind of rough. And that's what we're working with from the beginning here. And High Guardian Spice falls into a lot of first timers, low production values, I'm guessing a low budget. We've heard about like struggled development, so like yeah. There's a whole lot of baggage walking into this.
Yeah, it is a good time to live. I know this where you do have media that is LGBTQ plus like this, where it's very unabashedly open.
Mm-hmm.
But also it's not good. And it makes it really hard because you want it to be good. And you see where there is goodness in it. And we'll talk about where it was good, because there are definitely some moments where I watched it and I was like, oh, that was actually pretty decent. But that didn't come until the end. And I actually think that is one of the biggest problems this show has, is the beginning of it does not feel like the end of it. They do not seem to have any connection with each other. I don't know who this show was trying to go for, what like audience they wanted, because at the beginning it's very child friendly.
Yeah.
So let's just go through the episodes. I have an episode list up. I don't remember everything about it, but I remember enough. So our journey begins with two not dating characters. Now I have to specify this because Brantley for like
I got tricked. But I should say like this is. I actually am glad about this. Should I start or should I let you finish out the episode summary?
Go for it. Go for it.
Yeah, so we're introduced to our two main characters of the main characters, and that's Rosemary and Sage. So Rose and Sage are...
Rosemary is pink and Sage is blue. I'm just letting you know, in case you're like, who's who? And you see a picture, Rose is pink. Yeah,
and Sage is blue. We've got pink and blue, and they're besties. Now they're girl best friends, if you catch my drift. But like they are not in a relationship. You might think they are, but they're not. And I thought they were, but I think that ends up working because later in this show, Sage and Rose, to a lesser extent, start to realize that maybe they actually have feelings for each other. Now, in like, say the first episode, they sleep in the same bed. They go everywhere with each other. They watch a little rodent creature do a mating dance and fly off with a mate, and like, like they like sort of like magically evolve together. And it's a whole thing, so like the writing is on the wall for these two characters to be in a relationship. But they haven't like realized that yet. They're aware that like, for example, that they could have a relationship because let's see, is it Rose's aunts?
Sage's cousins. she calls them both their cousins, but it's like aunt and uncle kind of
Right,
thing.
right, okay, yeah. So aunt and aunt, sort of. So like they're already being exposed to a women love women relationship, and so essentially the pieces are there that they could, they could be in a relationship, but they haven't awakened to that yet. And they start to later on in the season, and I think that's great. I think it's nice to see like the elements are there, but they have to sort of break away from it and then come back together before they start to see it for its relationship potential, what they have.
Right.
I think it's one of the more um it's one of the more compelling things that the show has on offer, compared to other media in this vein, is to have characters that are kind of already there but haven't like actualized that yet. And so like, at first I was like, oh wow, that sucks, I feel like I got baited. But no, it's absolutely not that. It's a real experience that I'm not aware of because I didn't grow up that way, and I feel happy to see like, hey, I bet someone else is going to lock onto this and really learn something about themselves as they watch this, if the age range was also better matched. So I don't know how effective it will be in the end, but I appreciate it.
Yeah, I actually really that's probably one of the most positive things I can say about this show is that the way that they do representation is actually pretty damn good. You have a lot of diverse characters who follow a range of every part of the LGBTQIA plus community, but also there are times where it feels just a little exploitative, where it's just like, this is this character's entire thing. But I don't blame that on the writer or the creator. I blame that on time constraints and only having 12 episodes to do what you need to do. Especially considering that, will this show get another season? I hope so. I really do.
Mm-hmm.
So, and I hope we can delve into that. But I really like it, and I know that the creator, Ray Rodriguez, he wanted the show to have a world where people were, at quote by him, generally a lot more chill about LGBTQ plus people than they are in real life, and I dig that. I like that idea, and I think that it does it really well.
Yeah, I'll slip in here. If you're not, it might feel like it comes on strong. What I mean to say is like you're gonna get like this stuff laid out to you very bluntly. Like you're going to sit down with Professor Carraway, and Professor Carraway is going to tell you to the camera, I'm transgender, and so that might feel awkward for like cinematic purposes, for lack of better words. Because normally there's like, we're used to this being like the big, like, it's the thing, right? It's the build up and then
Right.
the set and spike, but that's not it here. It's just normal. The show needs to lay that out because the characters still aren't used to that. When other characters are realizing these things, they have role models that are there for them, but they still haven't lived enough to actually come to those conclusions themselves. So although it's going to be like, again, very blunt and upfront about it, and that's going to feel awkward in terms of like contemporary like story or narrative like style, I think it makes more sense in the world they're trying to build. That even though these characters are in a world where these things are very acceptable, they just haven't figured out that that's what they are yet.
Yes. It's just that it sometimes it feels like they want to explore it more, and it's not explored at all. And sometimes the writing makes it like Brantley said, it's awkward, and it can be awkward because it's so forward, but it can also be awkward because the conversations they have don't necessarily feel like real conversations half the time. But that's a writing thing, not or a directing thing. I have some theories about where the production of the show went wrong, but I'm not gonna go into that. So after they see the mating dance with these little rodent creatures, which stole Rosemary's locket. They take the locket to get fixed, and they meet the best character in the show, Parsley, who is a dwarven blacksmith, and she repairs it, and it's good. And she's like, hey, I'm also going to High Guardian Academy, where I'm gonna be a blacksmith. And that's how it works. And it's a very fun sort of... it's alright. They also have a mimic named Chompy, who's in like 2 episodes and then disappears without any mention that it's gonna happen again. It just fucking goes away. It reminds me of a, like, even like the opening kind of reminds me of like My Little Pony, like, oh, journey and adventure and friendship, and here is a really, really terribly, like, the opening's very blunt and straightforward. It's a little charming, but it reminds me of like Saturday morning cartoons or like 4Kids, right? Where it seems like they put in the bare minimum effort to make it different, and they just shipped it without any rewrites. And I can't remember anything terribly bad about the first episode. I mean, the voice acting's not great. There's some parts where the characters just go, which could be funny, but it doesn't fit.
Mm-hmm. There's the mountain.
Oh, yeah.
Sure, the mountains in the first episode.
The mountains in the first episode. There's a mountain that has just not been... it's very low resolution.
You ever seen you're in school and the teacher's got the PowerPoint up and they took an image that definitely was way too small, like some clip art, and they just scaled it way up and it's all gritty looking? Like you can see the aliasing and all the pixels are very defined. Yes, this happened to some background art in the first episode, so that's probably one of the strongest omens about the show's like production angle. And I guess one of the reasons why so many people leapt to it as like a point of sensation, and why I immediately started coasting, because I could say, oh, I know what this is all about, and just, yeah, okay, so just set the bar like all the way on the ground. Yeah, so I'll say this, the first episode will very quickly tell you how well you'll take to the show.
Yes, also, I will say, I will have some complaints about some of the character designs going forward. I did see Ray Rodriguez's original drawings of these characters, and I liked his renditions better. I think he had a much better idea of what encompassed them as characters. You can look at it at his website. It's very good. They're fun. They're kind of the kind of like more like flat style of sketches looks better than what they do here. And then when they kind of made them just less charming.
Did they simplify? Is it a thing?
No,
for
they
animation,
complicated it.
Oh,
I think Ray's was Ray's kind of reminded me of like some early like Flash animation designs where it's very big, focused on like 1 or 2 attributes of the character. Like Rosemary had much bigger eyes. Sage had like different hair and her hat was bigger. And it looks better.
That to me, actually, I want to see.
Yeah, I will.
You can do that an hour later. It doesn't matter.
I'll do it while I'm talking about it.
Okay.
So it's interesting because I think that there are some really good characters, and I like them. But here it is. We'll post this too on like Twitter or something, or you can just look it up. And if you like scroll down, you can see some of the early sketches, and I really, really like them. I especially, and we see a little bit more, but I just like his art style better than what we got. I really do. I think it's much more charming, and it might have been harder to animate because of it, but I just appreciated it better. He did like a mock-up, I'll send that to you too, where it kind of reminds me a little bit more like Adventure Time. Just like not it's the colors, not like the look. But I like it. And this one we get a couple different weirder things. So the next episode is like, hey, welcome to school, time to do your classes, and the class schedules do not make sense. They don't have the same classes every day, or even like the same classes a week. Rosemary goes to an ethics class who is taught by this librarian tiefling like character. It's like a devil woman, and it's like everybody who plays a tiefling and is horny is like, this is what my character looks like. She is just like the absolute most stereotypical horny tiefling I've ever seen. And it's not tiefling because that's copyrighted by Wizards of the Coast, but it's what it is. And it's just, it's odd as hell. And I do remember there was one joke that hit really fun where Rosemary was sketching and she handed a sketch to Snapdragon, who smiles, looks at it, crumples it up, and then throws it in her face. I thought that was funny. It was good.
Yeah.
Parsley goes to a blacksmith class who's taught by Mox Flox, who is a satyr blacksmith, and I'm pretty sure that dude was eating bread while he was talking into his mic. You could not understand like half of what he said, but he is my absolute favorite character. Just he is just this dude, and he's like a dad, and it's great. I also forgot to mention that Parsley has like 17 brothers. So that's fun. And then Sage and a new girl named Time, who is the Elven Ranger. And they have like I don't know if this is the episode where they do the potions. And the potion master is like, oh, by the way, all the potions you just drank are poison. Some of you will die. So you find out how to make the antidote. And of course, Sage.
Yeah.
And Sage does. And it's like, you wonder to yourself, was this woman really going to kill her students? And they never explicitly say no.
Yeah, you can kind of guess that the answer is no because like their heads are turning into different animals and stuff, so it's like, oh, she's probably over exaggerating. But also I think there's at least one person whose head turned into a fish, so it's like And
also they mention that students die before, and the stuff they have them do later on is fairly difficult.
Yeah, and tonal inconsistency already begins to show like this early on.
Yeah, and like to put in comparison, like it's like if Little Witch Academia did not have any of the in detailed world that it has. I always felt that Little Witch Academia did this kind of loose magical world really, really well because it did follow its rules, even if they were a little bit looser. This just doesn't have rules. It's like whatever is cool is gonna happen. And so at the end of the day, they're like, write your guardian vows, and they do. And the triad who owns the school is like, you're all wrong, but that's the point of guardianship. But then it tells you the actual vows. I kind of wish they would have done a thing where it's like, here's the thing about guardian vows: they're personal, and there are no real ones, but there were. So it kind of lessens that effect. So it's
again, it's like you get the impression that's what they're going for, but maybe it's because your brain is writing that more effectively than the show is speaking it. I don't know.
Yeah. So in the next episode is the one with Neppy Cat, and Sage accidentally makes her cat smart and big and strong, and they have to stop it. You find out that Caraway, the like main professor, he was friends with Rosemary's mom, who's gone missing. And this is also the episode where Caraway mentions that he is a trans man. He is transgender. And he mentions that he has to take a potion every month to maintain the body that he is truly in. And at this part, I'm like, well, that's a really good way to start talking about like hormone therapy to kids, because at this point, I still think this is a kids show.
Yeah.
And so I'm like, all right, that's fine. We still see some really weird dialogue choices in this one. This episode's kind of nothing. There's nothing big about it. I don't remember anything specific except Parsley does like a little like errand for Mox Flox because she's just already a master blacksmith. Time gets some things with her rangerness. So yeah.
Yeah, some of these early episodes I feel get awkwardly spread out across B and C plots in order to keep everybody busy while they're still trying to characterize each person's specialties.
Yeah.
And it becomes difficult to actually like parse which is like the A plot. They're all kind of, I guess if you're not interested, then they all kind of feel like B plots that are just kind of meddling together.
It's a
and
lot.
occasionally cross paths. Yeah.
And that's one of the big issues the writing has in this show is being able to consistently keep all the characters doing something without it feeling like busy work. It constantly feels like if they're not doing something, they're not there. And then this episode, and then the next episode is where I think the show started to like really, really interest me in a way it probably shouldn't have. Because the school shuts down because of an infestation of trabbers, and trabbers are like crab things. I thought it was going to be like the trouble with tribbles, because it's like, oh no, there's so much stuff. How are we going to deal with them? And the school just goes, go home for the weekend. We'll take care of it. So that's fun. Parsley takes Time to her house during the weekend because Time doesn't want to go see her mom. She has 7 brothers and a younger sister. And they have like a dwarf dinner, and it's fun because it's kind of like this oh, elves and dwarves don't get along, classic fantasy trope. But it turns out that they're actually friends with Time's mom, and Time's mom is like, what the hell are you doing here? She sulks. And during this whole nonsense time, Sage and Rosemary get what they call a terrasphere, which is kind of like digital magic. They call it new magic, and old magic is more like runic. It was supposed to mean something, but it didn't. And this is also the episode that they say badass in. Now, when I heard them say your mom was a badass, I immediately went, oh fuck, this changes everything.
Yeah. If you aren't aware, this show opens up by telling you that it's made for mature audiences, which when you feel like you're being talked down to for most of it, at least from an adult perspective, you wonder why that's there. Like there's one glimpse of that maybe in episode 3, was it, where you get to see
you see some fantasy blood. You see them cut
you get
a dragon.
To see a dragon bleeding when they're attacking it. And so it's like, okay, maybe that's what that's about. But they start leaning into it more and more as the show goes on. And I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing.
I don't like it. I don't like it because the rest of the tone is very childish. So I was able to kind of forgive some of the writing because like, oh, if you're trying to make it for children, you have to, you kind of have to play into these kids not having a worldview that they're aware of. Which is why I was like, oh, the way they handled Caraway was really good because it's a very just straightforward, simplified version of it, and it still works in the universe, so I'm still pretty good on that. But some of the jokes aren't funny. Some of the way they describe things isn't weird. Also, I don't know how old the characters are supposed to be.
Yeah.
I like, part of me is like, oh, they're like 12 or 13, and other times I'm like, they're 16 or 17. They're supposed to be in school, but I just have no idea where they're at. And the way they're written it doesn't help you, because you're like, it doesn't help.
And all of these things are constantly circling in your head as you're making your way through these early episodes. In between, like, going through some very lame dialogue and like you're eye rolling through that. You're also questioning like any of the world logic that they're building up. If you are a world builder and you like world building, this show will probably make you nauseous just because it's not going to take time to like establish these things firmly for you. More often than not, it's going to shorthand it to something that it hopes you understand. Like, for example, the style of the world is very like common or generic, like European fantasy in terms of like the architecture and stuff. You know, same for like the approach to magic and you know, things of that nature. But there also are like inconsistencies kind of sprinkled through. And I don't have any examples right off the top of my head, so I apologize if it sounds like platitudes here. But
I do, but I'm not there yet.
Yeah, we will get there. But just know, this is where it really starts to sink in. And if you have a CinemaSins brain, it's going to be popping off.
Even if you don't have... Because CinemaSins fucking sucks. Like, fuck CinemaSins.
Cinematography, man. That's what we're here for.
But, like, even people that I'm pretty loose with a lot of world building. Like, anime doesn't have the best world building a lot of times. A lot of times it's rule of cool, and I'm okay with it. But this show wants so hard to do specific things, but then it decides to fuck it and say no.
Yeah. When things get more dangerous, especially, that's where it's like, hold the fucking phone. Wait, like, where are we at here? When characters start swearing, etc.
Yeah. Also, some of the characters in the early episodes clearly were not in a recording studio. And some of the characters, this is their first time voice acting. And they're not good. And that's not to be like, oh, they suck completely. But to me, it seems like they had no... It reminded me a lot of the Black Rock Shooter fandom, right? Where it was very, like, stiff delivery. And some qualities of Mike's were bad. This is also the episode that introduces my least favorite character and also my favorite character, Slime Boy, who sounded like he was eating his mic the entire time. And he just sounded like he did not give a shit. I think they did it better in the later episodes when Slime Boy comes back. But during this episode, he just sounds like he's like, hey, what's up? My name is Slime Boy because of the slime.
You're not stuttering enough.
Yeah, and then there's a part where he's like, can we have this terrasphere? And he's like, hey, all right. And it's just it sounds and knowing the voice actor, he could have been fucking high. I mean, like, I just want to get this out of the way because we'll go into voice actors later. But the person that voices Slime Boy is Julian Coster, who is the bass guitarist of Neutral Milk Hotel and helped write Aeroplane Over the Sea. Now, for those who are not into like indie folk music and shit. Neutral Milk Hotel is like the de facto hipster. Like it's so stereotypical to like Neutral Milk Hotel if you like weird shit or like you're like, oh, I'm an indie, I like indie music. You're like, oh, so you listen to Neutral Milk Hotel. So it's like, oh fuck, Julian Coster's in this, and I think he helped write some of the songs in this. He does, by the way, play the musical Saw in Neutral Milk Hotel, and he does it in the show as Slime Boy. But he's a very talented individual, and I think that some whack shit happens in the first introduction of him, but he gets better. But like even the main cast, I think, increases incredibly as time goes on. It seems to go from like I did a lot of I have a minor in acting, right? So I'm not like a professional actor, but I know how you're supposed to read lines, and I know when a line reading is bad, and I know when actors aren't trying. You have the time put in. You have experience sitting down and doing this. Yeah. Right. And so there are times where I'm like, that was the first time that person read that line. And they just go with it. And I do know that during the time when they first recorded this, it was during COVID-19. So I think that during the first few episodes, there was no voice direction. I honestly think that the actors were given a script and sent, hey, read this. And they did. Because not only does their voice acting get better, but so does the sound quality of some of the characters. Yeah. But Slime Boy is definitely the one. Almost everybody that I've seen watch the show is like, what the fuck is with Slime Boy? And it's pretty damn good. So the next episode is just another new magic versus old magic kind of thing, where they're trying to fix some plants and they're supposed to use new magic, but Sage won't use it. And Time knows old magic, but Time won't use it. And this is also the episode where they come into a room and you meet what's their name? Parnell, yes. And Parnell says, "Oh, I just came here to cry." Now, once again, the way that Parnell is reading these lines is not very good. And I was like, God, who is this person? Who is Parnell?
Mm-hmm.
And turns out that the person that plays Parnell in High Guardian Spice is like a fairly prolific voice actor.
Yeah.
And let me bring him up because I had this up. So it's Barbara Goodson, who is like is in Persona 5, is in Sailor Moon, is Rita Repulsa, is in Dissigia, is in Naruto, is like in Fooly Cooly, just like a list of like high profile voice acting. And once again, just could not read these lines well.
Mm-hmm.
And to me, that really shows that what we're seeing is some really bad voice direction. Because she did really good as Naota in Fooly Cooly.
Mm-hmm.
She's had moments where she's done well. She can do it. So what we're seeing here, she was Goku. Like, she was the original Goku in Dragon Ball.
Mm-hmm.
So she has the capability, but whatever the fuck was happening something wasn't working.
External circumstances, yeah. And which is not to say like you have to necessarily repair all your feelings on this either. Like I am walking into this, it doesn't bother me that much because I'm also someone who likes Neo Yokio, a show that has extremely similar problems to this one, I think. Like almost remarkably similar pattern of like voice acting quality and like animation quality, etc. Like anyways, like if like it's I'm gonna like lay this out here, just knowing like that like yeah, things were tough doesn't also mean you have to say like, well, you should like it anyways. I don't want to give that impression, if it's rough to listen to, then back out. It doesn't have to be your thing. Your sympathy does not have to repair your feelings about what you subjectively experience.
Right. Because it's still not good.
Right. Like, if it sounds grating to you, then you can call it that.
Right.
I think we need to be okay with that as, like, we're getting used to wanting to support media for its messages, but also, there should be plenty of variance still in the resulting quality of that thing, and how people take to it. So,
yeah. But this is also the episode where Slime Boy says he's like, this is a good place to cry. I wrote a crying song, and I thought that was fucking hilarious.
Yeah. It's kind of like everybody in this show as actors gets a redemption arc.
Yeah. They do. And this is also one where like Sage's voice actress starts to like do some pretty good emoting. Time was really good in the first one, kind of stepped back in this one, gets better later.
Time's character in particular, the writing makes such a difference.
Yes.
Unfortunately, when you'll notice, it is usually for the worse. But
yes.
We'll get there.
And so they make up, everything's fine. Once again, just not connected to the rest of the plot. You start to see that up until like episode 7. The first 6 episodes just do not work. Also, this is the episode, I believe, where Time says shit. So
I think so too.
It's the one where she's like, I don't mess with that shit. And you're like, what the fuck? Once again, because like,
that's a leap from badass. Like,
Foster's Home for Imaginary Friends said piss. right? Like, the Proud Family said, damn. There were plenty of children's shows that have used, like, mild swear words.
But a lot of times it's in their blaze of glory going out. Like, it's like their final
Yes.
episode or their final movie, and they get it in there.
Yeah, but this one is just, like, it's a lot. Really quick.
Yeah, there can be no other argument against my feelings on this now. That, like, at that point, I just had to admit to myself, okay, this is not a kid's show. It's not for kids.
Yep.
Hard line drawn in the sand there. So
in the next episode, we learn about misogyny. There's an obstacle course, and you're paired up with random people. And you also get a little bit of a look into Professor Hakone, who was Ghost in The Matrix Reloaded, I believe, which is just a whack shit. He's not a very major character in The Matrix Reloaded, but he's in it, and he is Professor Hakone, who is the warrior teacher, but he wears, like, a gi, and it's really weird.
Again, it's like contemporary aesthetic shorthand for, like, oh, martial arts, but why this here in Fantasyland? Once again, the world building continues to prove that it's a hodgepodge or a fusion of, like, pop culture-y things. I don't know.
Yeah. It's weird. No, wait, no. Is it him? I don't know. But I could be wrong. Okay, so Hakone is not Ghost. I thought he was. Someone is Ghost. Or maybe that was a different show, because fucking a lot of shit's happened since then. So don't always listen to me.
Don't listen to us. End the podcast now. The share zone. You can leave.
Also, some of the cast in on IMDb, it also has the Japanese cast.
Oh, okay, yeah.
So there's a lot of, like, I'm like, oh, this character did this, and I'm like, wait a second, Nonaka did not do Sage in the English version. She's Sakura, Kyoko, and Madoka. But that's the thing. It's like there's a lot of whack shit. So at any rate, you meet Aster, and I remember, and Aster is the crush of the day for Rosemary. And Brantley was immediately like, we'll never see Aster after this episode ever again. I hate their outfits. I know Brantley doesn't think them to be terrible. I don't like them.
That's fair.
No, I was right. Anthony Brandon Wong, who plays Hakone, is Ghost in The Matrix Revolutions and Matrix Reloaded. So I'm right.
Excellent. If you left the podcast, you're a fool and a disgrace. Come on back now.
But so this shit happens, and Aster is a terrible human being in, like, every way, shape, and the form. You do get to see some fun pairings at this point, because, like, Parsley, like, is working with Parnell, who was the one that had the goat and was crying with Sage. I think Sage is working with Snapdragon, and Snapdragon is kind of, like, trying to talk to Sage about their gender identity. And Sage just does not give a shit. She's being very selfish about it. There is a part where they get trapped in a bubble and a slide puzzle comes up, and they're like, what do we do here? And I'm like, it's a fucking slide puzzle.
Yeah.
You can only do one thing with it, and that's slide it. It's fucking hilarious. It's so bad. And then, like, time is met with another character we haven't talked about, which is Amaryllis, who is Snap's best friend, and she's just kind of, like, tiny, and she's a gremlin. She's not really a gremlin
character.
Yeah, she's just mean, but not evil.
She's kind of like your Pacifica Northwest subclass of character, where it's like the
Yes.
kind of like the affluent jerk, but not irredeemable.
The Diana character. The rich bitch. And Aster is just a misogynist. He doesn't think that Rose can do anything. And he's like shocked that her mom is the legendary Lavender. He's like, oh, a replica of her sword. She's like, it's actually the real one. And he's like, ha, cool. And he sucks ass. He has no redeeming qualities. And once again, here you see some really weird rules that the school has, because you're supposed to partner up to do these obstacle courses. And once again, the obstacle courses are very close to just murdering you. And this is also one of the problems I have with the world building. So for the most part, it's been really European centric, like fantasy, but all of their weapons are just incredibly diverse. And it reminds me a lot of D&D, where you have a character, you're playing like, oh, we're in the Forgotten Realms, we're in Neverwinter, we're in the place that is where every D&D takes place. And someone's like, I'm a samurai with a katana. And heck, that checks out. That's a thing you can do in D&D. That is not a thing that is in the rules as written. It doesn't fit with the setting, but that's okay, because it's D&D. You're allowed to do shit like that. So at this point, I was like, oh, this is just someone's D&D campaign. And so Aster is a bastard. He doesn't learn anything. And Rose realizes that she was fawning over him because he's got big muscles and not because he's actually a good person. There is a part where he just straight up runs into like a bush. But because the way they do cameras in this, it's not funny. Because he just like straight up turns into a bush that we as the audience also sees.
There's just a lot of bits that don't work in this episode. I think this is like the X Factor point where like the things that aren't working are awful, and the things that do work excel. Like this as an episode in gender essentialism is great. Because we see like Rose is having that put on her by Aster. Sage is putting that on Snapdragon. Parsley and Parnell are kind of like overcoming that together. But then there are things that flat out don't work, like visual gags that just like aren't funny and just like they'll flop. Like there's a joke between Amaryllis and Time about the word affair. Because like Amaryllis is talking about like they're bonding over how they're like distanced from their mothers. And so like all you needed to do was to burst that bubble of the joke is to Amaryllis to use the word affairs casually, and Time to make a quick comeback about oh, I'm sorry to hear your mom has so many suitors, or just like so she's banging a lot or anything like that. Like at that point they dropped bastard in this episode, so they could have just made a sex joke and then it would be over quicker, and even if it wasn't funny it would be fine. But the joke around the word affair and them both coming to the terms that it's like, is it a sex thing or not, takes forever in cartoon logic time. And it's just not good. So again, there are things that work in this episode, things that don't. Another thing that doesn't work happens at the end of it, so I'm gonna wait. So I'm gonna sit back down.
Well, I was actually gonna mention that. So you get all these characters hating each other and not being good partners. You do have a really funny moment with Parsley, and it's one of my favorite moments, because Rose was like trying to like hit on Aster, but was being very like, oh, I don't know if I want to go talk to him. And Parsley's like, I'll do it, he's a babe. And then starts to go. She's like, if you're not gonna fucking do it, I'm gonna do it. And I'm just like, hell yeah, I get it. But Parsley and Parnell really work together. Parnell solves all the problems, and Parsley's just like the naturally talented one. And then they go up to Hakone and they're like, we're the first team to finish. And Hakone is like, good job, Parsley. You get first place. Parnell, you get second place. And you're like, why?
Mhm.
And then Hakone's like, that's just because.
Yeah.
And then within like the last like literally 10 seconds of that episode, Parsley drops a hammer on Aster's foot, which is against the rules, causing him to demote Parsley to second place. And then Parnell becomes the leader, and it ends like immediately. And he goes, "Ha! I won!" Like it's the end of a fucking video, like a Mario
it's the end
Party
of CDI. Like,
yeah, it's so. And you know what? It fucking could have been a reference to it. Like honestly, it could have been it. They like go all chibi, which is the first time they've ever done like a chibi gag
in the shows. Like it's rare, right? Like,
yeah,
not in the ending, for example. Yeah,
it's whack as shit.
And it sucks because it's like, ideally, this should be about like, hey, the system is broken, kind of like the general essentialist stuff they'd been discussing up to that point. So it's like, okay, well then let's change the system. But the system doesn't change. Professor Hakone just leaves it as it is, and they get around the rules with a wink and a nudge and a broken foot.
Yeah, it's fucking whack.
And that's the answer. Like, why? Like, he's in charge. He could have done a wink, wink, nudge, nudge, and no one's toes had been broken. Like,
or they could have just been like, you both get first place. It's so fucking whack. It's the exact same thing as the Guardian vows. The system doesn't make sense. There's a lot better ways you can do it, but instead of tackling it, they just like nudge it away and continue going.
Yeah. I get, like, there are some pieces that are fitting together here, but I don't like the pieces that they chose to fit. So it's like, we technically got to lock in that, like, Aster got some physical punishment, but it's kind of after he already is, like, putting Rose on a pedestal, which is, like, a better thing, but not a good thing overall. Then it's like, they technically do get Parnell into first place, but then it's like they should have equally had it anyways. Like, we have the uplift, but it's still at the risk of the broken system. But it's like, but it does have a better setup and Spike as like a paced out bit, but I don't think the bit is funny or impactful. And so it just ends up being awkward. I'd much rather that they just, like, don't have a joke associated with that. And he's like, well, that's the rules, as I grade this way. And they're like, well, does that really make sense? And ideally you'd say, well, I suppose it doesn't, so I suppose we'll make an exception, or something like that. It's not fun. Like, it's boring in comparison, but I'd rather have that than an inconsistency or a letdown in terms of like the systemic angle on this.
It's weird. And then the next episode is even weirder. They go to a cave. It's like the national hazing day for first year students. So I guess they're 14 if they're in high school. I don't fucking know. I stopped trying to give a shit. And during this time, there's this really weird focus on this one character. It's just like this generic looking
again. Yeah.
It's like a generic looking blonde student for like the first like 5 minutes as they head to this cave. And the horny tiefling character, Professor Dretch, is like, you have to go get a bottle of healing water. Most of you will probably make it out alive, and if you don't, you are expelled. And it's fucking stupid. It doesn't make sense. It's so out of nowhere with how this school has been. It's just like, hey, here's our training. If you fuck up, you suck. And then...
And immediately Professor Hakone has to mention, like, this mission is supposed to be less dangerous and less, like, skill-intensive than stuff you've already done, so you're supposed to be prepared for this. So it's like, then why have hazing day? Like, this does not align except maybe to set up the fact that, like, there's more danger lurking out beyond where they go in an attempt to keep them from going out too far, but like,
let's compare it to and I don't want to give this show like too much props, but let's compare it to Boku no Hero. The first years of Boku no Hero are given a mentor, and they're supposed to just do basic shit, right?
Mm-hmm.
They're not supposed to go and save the world. Of course, our guys accidentally get involved in it, but for the most part, that's not what they're doing. But these guys are just like, hey, go into this cave, you might die, and if you even fail, you're expelled. It's such a weird, sudden turn of, like, school policy, unless you count the poisoning of students.
Yeah.
It's really weird. And then the weird blonde generic character leaves and is expelled. And she's like, I'm too young and attractive to die on a suicide mission. That's it. Her entire character existed to show that it was a serious threat and that is what's going to happen. And then it doesn't make sense.
Mm-hmm.
It just it's so mean and so mean-spirited for these characters to do that when this hasn't been the case for the first 6 episodes of the show.
Yeah.
Like they didn't say,
like they already went through an obstacle course that had like swinging scythes and like fucking like what must have been like 20-foot tall like rollers to climb up on. Like it's
they've done dangerous shit before under the eyes of a mentor, and time doesn't pass super well either. You don't know how long it's been.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like, how long have they been training? And apparently not well. So they go into the cave and they fight the big old crabs, the trabbers, and holy shit, is it like a very brutal and bloody fight.
Yeah.
Like there's just blood. They like snap legs off of these things. Rose is like stabbed.
Yeah, she takes a battle wound and she's bleeding.
And you're like, oh fuck. This show has blood and danger. And then so they find a goblin named Buckles, and he's like, if you don't pass my riddle, I'll eat you. Oh, who am I? The answer is he's 4 Buckles. He's 4 of them. And then he gives him a little rock, and he tells him where the healing water is, and it is in a diamond-encrusted room. They put Rose in the healing water to save her, and then these 2 big statues come to life, and they say something that really makes me mad. They're like, they're made of diamond. That's the hardest material in the world.
Element. They say element.
Element. Yeah, they say element. Diamond is not an element. Carbon is an element that diamond is made out of. And they're like, nothing can break diamond except for other diamond. That's not true either. I know it's a TV show. I know it's this, but like they get so much wrong so quickly. And you can make up magical materials. That's the fun part about fantasy. You can make up magical materials that do this. Don't use diamond. Diamond is fragile. It's brittle. It's hard. Hardness and is not a measure of how easy it is to break or how hard it is to break. It is how hard it is to scratch. You can't scratch diamond with anything else. You can sure as hell break it with a hammer, which is what Parsley uses as a weapon. Well, I'll be damned. She has the perfect thing to break diamond, and it doesn't do anything. And so they have the 2 diamond guardians run into each other, which apparently causes them to shatter, which also doesn't make sense. But like that's cartoon logic. I don't give a shit about that. And now they're trapped because the guardians broke in front of the door. Now, once again, we come to this idea where it's like, well, they know the professors know they're in there. They should be able to save them.
Mm-hmm.
But they're like, well, this is it. We die here. And you're like, what? It's like, yeah, we're gonna die. We can't get out. And no one knows where we're at. It's like, yes, they do. And it's wild to me that they don't have like a fail-safe. They don't have a...
Like, this is a place where that water is stored. So, like, why don't they send someone down to check? So it's like, this is a structured place. Like, there's architecture and everything. So it's like, there's no way this is unknown. So it's like, why? Yeah, exactly. Why are they not sending anyone? By the time they get out, which of course they do, but by the time they get out, it's nighttime. And there's no flares, there's no nothing. They just walk home.
Yeah, they were just like, well, I guess they're dead. And so they like, oh, we have this stone that's a dragon egg, and they put the dragon egg in the healing water, which hatches the dragon into an adult dragon. They ride it to freedom, and then the adult dragon just dies. It turns into a skeleton and explodes into stars. And Rose is like, is this where stars come from, Sage? And Sage is like, sure, let's go with that. But the healing waters did not say that they age you faster. They did not say they propel you forward in time until your skin is healed. It doesn't make sense. Why did the dragon die? I can understand if it's like, oh, it gave it life, so it grew up real quickly. It's like, okay, sure. But it died, like, immediately after.
Mm-hmm.
It's like they didn't want to deal with the dragon problem, so the dragon exploded.
Yeah. It's contrived.
And you meet Olive, who's a cat girl voiced by Stephanie Sheh, a.k.a. Sailor Moon. Very, very, once again, prolific voice actress. And I will say, by the time they get to this part, the voice acting has increased substantially throughout everyone. At this point, it is not a problem with the voice acting. It becomes more of a problem with the writing. There are still some people who clearly have very, very little acting experience that just cannot say things in a believable tone, but they're still better.
Yeah.
And so at this point, I'm pretty much over criticizing voice acting for them. They are doing a serviceable job. The quality is noticeably better. The writing is still just not great. And this is where the show... So we watch a lot... I say this a lot. We watch a lot of shows with our friends. And at this point, like 3 of our friends joined us in watching the last like 4 episodes. And I'll tell you what, none of them were like... They still had like things to say about it, right? They'd be like, well, that's stupid. That's a silly line. But most of them had a fairly decent time with it. So Olive is trying to catch Sage, Rose, Thyme, and Parsley because they know that they know about the corruption that is going through the world.
The rot.
And now it's the fall festival, and it's basically Halloween. The girls dress up. Sage dresses up as like a vampire, or like, I don't know what she dresses up, like a goth. Her outfit is good. It's a well designed outfit, but it's not anything like it's not anything that you would know. Rose is a dragon, and she's wearing like a kigurumi, like a dragon kigurumi. Parsley has the best costumes. She's dressed as Mox Flox, her blacksmith teacher. So she has little horns, and I think that's very cute and charming. And then Thyme has the worst outfit. She's dressed as, I think, like a werewolf.
Yeah.
But this episode's pretty okay. Because Snapdragon, this is a very, very Snapdragon and Amaryllis kind of focused episode, despite them not being the main characters. They are the only 2 other characters that don't get fucked by the like world-ending tragedy that happens here. So like Amaryllis is dressed up as a pirate and Snap is dressed up as a mermaid, and that's kind of like the whole like Snap realizing that she is transgender. And that's really good. I know that that's a pretty common thing where people will jokingly, and I put that in quotes, dress up as like the opposite, like the gender that they're not assigned to. And that's a lot of times an awakening moment for people like this. So it's like, oh, that's an interesting kind of like pull for this. Yeah.
I'll say, just to get out of the way as we're progressing forward through this review, from this point onward, actually really kind of in the obstacle course episode as well, but this is where I really kind of felt they were going to stick the landing with Snap. At least like sampling my own experience, sort of like nudging myself into like a like gender non-conforming position, and then trying out like, presenting as trans femme and stuff like that. Like all these little like milestones that Snapdragon is hitting are like very much things that either like I feel or like I empathize with, and I think it's my favorite part of the show. So yeah, that is it hits its full swing here. And we get like a very typical like hey, why are you dressed up as a girl kind of thing, delivered by none other than ProZD, who took the blow and played that character. I don't remember
that asshole.
Yeah, I don't remember
his name is like Cal.
Yeah, that's what it is.
Think.
Yeah. And so God bless you, ProZD. Sungwon does a fine job kind of getting through that. And
also he's a good actor, but he doesn't come until later. That's another thing. We don't know, because if he didn't do good, I would really, really start to put a lot of focus on the director, because he has a pretty wide range of shit that he can do.
Yeah.
And he's mostly done sketch comedy in the past, so he should be used to only voice acting with himself. But we don't, if the COVID-19 thing was a thing. But I'm not sure. His character doesn't show up till later.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and so anyways, this marks the point, I think, where like Snap's arc starts here, like in an official capacity, and I think they pull it off. So I'm gonna try not to re-mention that on every additional milestone that comes on here. I'm just gonna lay it out first.
Yes. I agree. And so Snap and Amaryllis get in a fight, and they want to go smash shit. That is an actual quote from the show. Amaryllis defends Snap from ProZD, and is like, "Come on, Snap, let's go smash shit."
Which is perfect. It's probably my favorite line in the whole damn show.
And also Amaryllis' voice actress is really good. Yeah. I actually think that, and it's also one of her first voice acting roles, and I think that she absolutely stuck the landing with her character.
Yep.
So Olive, the cat girl, is here to turn the main girls into stone, so that she can take them back to her evil lords and Smokeface. And they give her a like one turn use spell that can turn them all to stone. And it does have a really, honestly, it's supposed to be a badass gag, but I thought it was really funny. She's like, "Here's what we're gonna do," and she's like going through she's like, "If I can get in close to time and knock her off her feet, she can't shoot me with her arrows because she's a ranger. Sage won't have enough time to cast a spell, which will allow me to go to her. And Rose is unarmed, so I can't do anything to her." And so she does that, and as she approaches Rose from like behind her Kigurumi, because she's wearing like a hooded dragon onesie, pulls out her sword, and it's fucking hilarious. It's not supposed to be. It was supposed to be like an oh shit moment, but I thought it was the funniest shit ever. It's so dumb.
Never leave home without it.
Yeah,
which you mentioned that actually early in the what is it, like the first or second
episode, because they don't bring
their weapons around in like the market. Yeah.
No, they don't bring their sword. She goes, "You should leave your sword." Sage tells Rose to leave her sword at home, and she's like, "You shouldn't be walking around with swords." And I'm like, "Why not? You're in a fucking like fantasy world. Yeah, everyone has swords." It's such a weird thing, but yeah, she carries it here, and I didn't think of that. And so like Snap and Amaryllis do this whole like virtual reality game, which once again, here is where it gets really weird. This show did not present itself as like a technologically advanced fantasy world. Mm-hmm. It did not do like aetherpunk or steampunk or like or like magic tech, right? That was not part of this show's.
There's no smartphones, there's none of that.
Exactly. Until this because like if they had smartphones, or if they had like Kingdom Hearts level like social media, right? Mm-hmm. Where it's just like, this is so weird and out of place, but I guess it works. If they had that from the very beginning, this wouldn't have been super out of place, where it's like, oh, they have magical internet, that makes sense. Mm-hmm. But no, they don't have magical internet, but they have virtual reality games. It's so stupid.
Yeah. And the virtual reality games look like our video games, despite not having a thread back. Like, again, if you care about world building in any capacity, this show will probably like drive you up the wall.
It drove me up the wall.
Mm-hmm.
So what happens is that they manage to protect, the main characters manage to protect themselves, except for Parsley, and Neppy Cat comes back. He manages to recreate the potion that turned him into big buff talking Neppy Cat. And that gag is funny for a couple minutes. It gets pretty old. But it works. It's not bad. It's not great, but it works. So they turn everyone else into stone except for Snap and Amaryllis, because they were behind a magical veil. And this is when they're like, Olive needs to now kill them, and she doesn't want to. Olive is very much the reluctant bad guy. And her design is straight out of Tokyo Mew Mew.
Yeah.
Like, she looks so much like Mew Strawberry, it's ridiculous. So they fight Olive, and it's a fairly okay fight. There's some corners they cut, but she cuts Olive's arm and blood spews everywhere. That happens. They manage to get everyone back into and out of their stone form, and everyone it's like nothing happened. Also, Time was gonna leave to go to the fairy woods to find her dad, which is kind of her big plot line. Her plot's all over the place. She's supposed to me, it's like they're trying to set her up for something more in season 2, but they totally forget to set her up as anything in season 1.
Yeah, she's like she knows about the rot, goes to school to learn about that and to like do something about it, but then realizes, oh, I have the means to do that, so maybe I should just leave now that I've got what I need. You know, she knows about the healing water, she knows that the rot is a thing, so now she needs to go back. But then the problem comes to her, and so her character kind of ends up having to like essentially shuffle its feet in place, as the plot is dragging her like in 2 different directions. Yeah, I think she gets it the worst out of the main 4.
Also, she slowly removes her costume, but doesn't remove the ears that come with her costume, and then like strips off her
her costume is by far the worst in this episode.
Terrible.
It doesn't really make sense. And it's not
supposed to.
Her character as well. Yeah.
No, it's not supposed to. It's supposed to be like Parsley put it together because she didn't know what she wanted to be.
But then it's like, how come she takes the head off and the ears stay on? It's like, how does that work?
Yeah. Olive the cat girl is like, oh fuck, I fucked up, and like, well, you get one more chance or we're gonna execute you. The next episode is kind of like a bottle episode.
Should we really quickly talk about the fucked up bird part?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, so they're talking about how, like, if you kill the person, if the stone shatters, the person dies. So they're trying their best not to shatter anybody. And, like, I still don't know the tone of the show. I still don't know. I've watched it all, and I'm still not sure. And I was like so under the impression that someone was going to fall and just like crack open, and like die, but that never happened. But there was a part where Amaryllis accidentally shot a bird, and she goes, "I bet it was decorative." And then at the end, there's just like this bloody mess and like bird bones on the floor, and she's like, "Oops, it wasn't." It's just fucked.
It's very morbid. Like the only thing we got close to that was like, when they're like dealing with botany and they're like feeding the plants live rats, and that was also kind of fucked because you watch the whole rat dissolve. There's a lot of animal cruelty in this show, weirdly. I don't get it exactly, but yeah.
The next episode is for most of the characters, it's a bottle episode where they're stuck inside. Rose is telling a scary story, and she makes Sage upset because of a I can't remember why she makes him upset. Something to do with being mean to Snap.
It was things were already not on good terms. Because of the
fall festival.
Yeah,
right.
Sage had all these things planned, and Rose was like, "I don't care about the plan." She's being selfish about it. So, they kind of had like a little mini breakup there.
Yeah. And in this episode, they kind of deal they do like these memories things where they pull memories out from their past lives, and it gives kind of a look into who they were in the past. And Rose doesn't want to apologize to Sage, even though she knows to, because she doesn't want Sage to feel like she's always right. But Rose does, and Sage does too, and they become friends again. And the B plot in this, Time is summoning a demon. And Parsley followed her, and they're trying to get the demon to tell her something, and they accidentally fuck up the protection circle. So the demon fights them, and they bind the demon in ropes, and the demon is begging for his life, and Time just says, nope, and then just executes the demon, like, right then and there. And it's so quick.
Yeah.
And you're like, it's fucking wild. The next episode's weird and not very good. There is a transformation sequence, though, where all the girls turn into mermaids.
Mm-hmm.
But it's a good episode with Snap, because Snap gets to kind of explore her gender identity a little bit more with Caraway, and Caraway's performance is still not great. I know that he's voiced by Ray, and I know Ray hasn't done a lot of voice acting in the past, so I'll get it. It's fine. It does what it needs to do. Mm-hmm. And I know it's just I don't like it when creators try and put themselves into their work. Personally, I understand why you want to, and I know Caraway is a very close character to Ray. But it's like, since I don't see more of the show, I'm not sure. Also, I just want to see more of the show before I make a final judgment, if there's going to be more. There's also the really weird joke in the Fall Festival that I cannot go away from. Caraway is with Sage's cousin and her girlfriend, which is Anise and Aloe, who are Sage's family. And Caraway always accidentally dresses up as Anise or Aloe. And then they're like, oh, how do you know each other? And they go, we go to the same parties. And I'm like, that's not something you should tell your students, especially with that connotation.
Yeah.
It's very weird. I'm okay with like having like a polyamorous relationship, but you don't go to your students and like, we go to the same sex parties. I know that I didn't say sex parties, but the way that I worded it is definitely what it's supposed to be. Mm-hmm. It's weird. It's a really weird moment in that episode. It made me very uncomfortable.
It's odd.
It's odd. Especially because Caraway doesn't have any other relevance in that episode. Mm-hmm. Like, he gets turned to stone, and that's it. So It was like he was specifically put there to make a joke about that, which is weird, and I don't like it.
Mm-hmm. It's character development, but not for much. It's
character development, but also a really weird gag for your child students. Mm-hmm. The next episode they turned into mermaids because the mermaid people wanted them to come and see if they could save the dragon. And Snap gets really jealous because she's like, I want to be a mermaid too. And Caraway has a heart-to-heart, and that heart-to-heart's really cute. I think that's a really good scene.
Mm-hmm. It's a scene about like, oh, this is a thing. I'm not alone in this. Again, it's the setup before of like establishing this very early on. I think was the right call. So
I do think it is. I do think it's weird though, because the show, besides Cal, has not really put too much emphasis on it being something that would be like hidden. It's weird because I know that Ray Rodriguez wanted it to be a place where people are a lot more chill with about LGBTQIA stuff. But at the same time, this happens.
Well, I think it's trying to exemplify, like, you know, it is in general a more accepting world, but that doesn't mean that there aren't still, underpinnings of like gender essentialist teachings or like family cultures, because that's kind of what both Snap and Cal are dealing with, right? Like,
right.
Cal is not exposed to this at all, and so essentially a total outlier to this stuff doesn't make any sense, and so Cal reacts aggressively. But Snap is in the same position. Snap doesn't entirely understand it either. Snap just understands that the girls look great, and Snap wants to look like that, or have something that they have, but the pieces aren't all the way together yet. And again, like, for viewers who aren't there, like, this sounds maybe like that doesn't sound like a real thing. Not even in an assertive sense, but just like, it's hard to put your mind into not knowing and then knowing, but I have been there.
It's not that I don't think it. I think the conversation sounds good. That entire conversation is good. It's just weird for this show to do it, I think.
I'm gonna say that, like, just because there's a note about, like, yeah, this is a world where this stuff is more accepted, doesn't mean that we have any percentage about, like, who is cool with it and who's not. More is relative. I think we shouldn't take that quote out of context too far.
That's fair, but it's just, to me, it's like, because of the earlier conversation that Caraway and Rose had, it's, I guess we do see Snap's background for a second, and that does make it.
And that is the thing too, right? So
that
it's
that
two
makes
things
it better.
clashing.
No, I forgot about that. I forgot about the Snap flashback. Don't
Yeah.
fucking kill me for forgetting something about this show, Brantley.
I'm not going to.
I'm gonna fight you. No,
What
but
the
no.
fuck is going on?
But you're right. No, with Snap's background, it makes significant more sense.
Yeah.
I forgot about that. So forget what I said. There is a really weird moment where Time, like, crushes on one of the mermaids, which is the only time we've ever seen her like feel any emotion towards anyone, which is fine and cute, but also this character is nothing and nobody.
Right. It's odd. So it's a weird place for, like, and, like, sure, like, sometimes you're just attracted to someone. It's like Rose and Aster, for example. But we're very deep in the season at this point, and so it feels out of place to then be putting in, like, what will definitely guaranteed be a dead end plot point. For them,
it's a dead end plot point in that episode,
right? Like,
they do not go any further with it.
Mm-hmm.
And it comes out of nowhere, which is fine, but because we're so far away removed from, like, the slice of life aspect of the show,
mm-hmm.
and it just kind of continues to work against Time's character, where you barely see anything about her. We know that she has a problem with her family. We know that she wants to return to the fairy forest. All that stuff is there, but her as a character is so stretched thin that you have no idea what the fuck she's supposed to be outside of Elven Ranger.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. There's quite a bit of conflict going on with her.
Also, there is a very, very close copyright breach with the horse, the seahorse character Bubbles. Very much just horsey mixed with Dratini from Pokemon. Like, you look that shit up, you're like, this is using that Pokemon generator. It's the same thing. It's like someone drew Dratini and gave it the horsey body and was like, that's it. That's our character. Like, are you sure Game Freak's going to get mad at us? Not going to get mad at us, and Game Freak probably won't even see this shit.
That's another weird bit. Like, again, we have this, like, comic relief cutesy mascot character in the middle of a very melodramatic, like, plot setup.
This episode is so out of place.
Like, we're in the field currently where Rose is taking time to doodle in her notebooks about how she definitely made Olive bleed. and she's like working that out, like with like drawings of it in her notebook, and it's pretty morbid. Like, it feels like the tone should be too far gone to still keep slipping in these little, like, gags. I don't know.
This is also the episode where, if you stab the serpent with the horn, it will sedate it, and Caraway can deal with it. And then Sage accidentally, like, maims the sea dragon, and then Rose fucking mercy kills it.
Yeah.
It's fucking so weird. It's like out of nowhere.
Mm-hmm. It's so heavy. It's brutal. Like, it's like, technically the show has gotten more brutal over time, but wow, this is a spike. Like, Sage losing control of her magic doesn't feel like it should be happening now. Not with, like, it feels like there was at least, like, a steady point. Maybe there wasn't. She just wasn't, combat engaged recently enough, because they technically have shown, here's a situation where Sage's magic is out of control in that continuity. But wow, like, this is the dramatic raise in the stakes,
It is.
It also doesn't help that aesthetically the way it's animated looks very questionable, because it looks like she's doing just fine, and then it just, like, it feels like the hand of God is taking her magic laser beam and just pointing it slowly down towards the dragon to kill it. And it's like excruciating to watch, because it feels really forced. Just how it's drawn. And that's ideally something they should have control over. So it feels, once again, contrived and totally inconsistent. And that tonal break is still like high intensity.
Yeah, no, it's fucked. It's so weird. Also, this episode comes at a real... This episode's, like, interesting, because it's... I guess they have, like, rainy day memories, and this episode are kind of like the rising... the falling action from the first climax into the rising action of the final climax.
Mm-hmm.
Because, like, the episode where they're at the fall festival, once Olive is wounded, she's like, I'm going to take care of myself until we actually finally attack the academy. And so Olive... In the final episode, Olive meets Mandrake, who's another agent from Spooky City, which I think is where they're from, which is a fucking stupid name. And Mandrake is like, I'm gonna kill this cat, and Olive's like, no, don't do it. And then they're like, hey, we gotta kidnap all the girls again, or kill them. And Mandrake is a shapeshifter, and he shapeshifts into Caraway. A fight happens. All of the professors are, like, knocked out with a sleeping potion, and Olive is like, man, I don't want to kill anyone. I'm switching sides. Rose calls Mandrake an asshole. She's like, let's kill this asshole. And you're like, what? And then Mandrake burns down the library. But they fight him, and they get him to run away.
Just a fuck ton of property damage, yeah.
A shit ton of property damage. Olive is arrested, which is a kind of a shitty end for her character, because she finally did something that she was like. And once again, if there's a season 2, they'll probably explore it.
Yeah.
And then Mandrake goes back to Spooky City, asking for mercy, trying to be like, help, I'll do it better, I'll kill them. And then you find out that the evil night lady is Lavender, Rose's mom. And then the episode ends, and then the show's over.
Yep.
And that's High Guardian Spice.
Whew. I think we got a lot of our thoughts out as we just went along.
It's not good. It is a solid 5 out of 10. If it was written, if the Fall Festival episode and the attack and the last episode were the writing styles for the entire show, I think it would be like a 6 out of 10, maybe even a 7 out of 10. It has some high points, but it's just muddled by low points. I know that it is horribly being review bombed, and I don't think that it deserves the ratings that it has on IMDb. I think it should be better. I don't think it's good. I think there's a lot to work with, though. It's okay. My feelings are complicated. I like what it's trying to say. I don't think that it did what it wanted to do.
Yeah, I think unlike the other Crunchyroll originals that we've seen, namely Gibieto and X-Arm, because this one gets better, that definitely makes things more difficult to evaluate, right? Like, this is a situation where, like, I would say a rare situation in media where, like, it just does get, like, the quality improves over time. So your usual, like, 3-episode test just is meaningless here. And that's not only with, like, you know, performances, but even, like, production quality gets better over time. The number of, like, unique action shots that are fluidly animated, and like the number of redrawn backgrounds for those shots, like that, all that, like, becomes more numerous over time. And so it's, our feelings have to sort of come in a gradient. But then there's also those spikes of weirdness all throughout, that, also prevent us from giving any kind of consistent, like, vibe on it either. Overall, like, I think it's fine. I have a much higher tolerance for this kind of show than I think a lot of other people, and so, like, I'll admit, like, I was later on, I would say, like, after we got past episode 3, I was looking forward to watching more of it. But, like, it's still, like, had plenty of times from just wincing through and just kind of gritting my teeth, like, okay, yeah, let's move on. Yeah. Hopefully by now you'll notice, like, our feelings on this don't share common ground with all the the bullshit that's probably being used as fuel for review bombing, and hopefully you as a listener don't get involved in that either. Just be careful, because, like, TERFs, right-wingers, like alt-right, neo-Nazis, all that bullshit, like, they know how to fight on common ground and leverage that. So if you go looking at more High Guardian Spice stuff, just do some good background checking and reflect on your feelings before you start, like, taking lead with what others will say about the show. But yeah, I don't have a summarizing thought for it. I think I can only present what I've said up to this point in piecemeal.
Mm-hmm. So do you want to know who I think is to blame for most of this shit?
Sure, let's get into that.
Alright, so this show is written and done by the directors were William Ruzica, who did 1 episode. Ray Rodriguez, the creator of the show, only did 1 episode, and he did the first one, and I kind of wish that he did all 12. I think him not being involved more often with the creation, with the directing of the show, was a big mistake. But I know that's not normally how it is done, but I think so. Alan Caldwell did 1 episode. Emi Yonemura did 1 episode. Amber Tornquist-Hollinger did 3 episodes. Michael Goguen did 3 episodes. And the big daddy director of the entire show is a man by Adu Payton. Now, Adu Payton is, in my, is a corporate director. Almost everything he does, he's done a shit. He's produced so much shit. He's produced, like, anything that is marketable, he's produced it. He produced all of Monster High. Any Hot Wheels shit, he produces that. He produced, like, Star Wars character cars and Toy Hideout, all this shit, and it all has to do with Hot Wheels. Like, that's all he does. For directing things, he did... Oh, shit, that's bad news. Apparently, he's doing the Magic the Gathering TV show on Netflix, which I'm sure is gonna be bad.
That's your live reaction, unfortunately.
Yeah, that was a live reaction. Just found out about. Ooh, that's gonna be terrible. Because Magic the Gathering was also gonna be done by the Russo brothers, so it's like, wow, you really dropped the ball on that one when you went from the guys that directed The Winter Soldier to this guy. But even then, everything he's directed, Monster High. He did some Animaniac stuff back in the 90s, and some Spider-Man, the TV series. He also was Stuart Little 3, Call of the Wild director. Just in case you wanted to know what direct-to-TV...
third one?
It was a direct-to-DVD, 3D, completely animated.
Okay.
In 2005. He did an episode of Attack and the Power of Juju.
Just one.
Yes, he did one episode. So if it comes to, he is a corporate director, right? He does things that sell toys. And he directed every single episode.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that was a mistake. I don't know if he was at fault for it. I really don't know.
These characters are not, like, at least from, like, you know, what is, like, the Crunchyroll material here, like, they're vapor. They have no, like, physical, like, brick and mortar store presence. You know, like, outside of maybe, like a Walmart poster, you know. Like, I honestly, like, it feels odd to pick, you know, such a director then to run this kind of show, unless that's why Crunchyroll did it, is to be like, well, this show needs legs to stand on, so let's get someone who's way into, like, the marketing and corporate part of this.
Well, and it's also, and that's the other thing. The other directors, like Michael Goguen, was like one of the animators for like the Batman the Animated Series in the 90s, but all of his directing credits are almost all Barbie shit.
Mm-hmm.
Amber Turnkeist Hollinger, art department includes like some of like the Looney Tunes shows, some of the like direct to DVD Disney stuff. Director, High Guardian Spice, and a TV series called Housebroken, which is about a talking dog. There's Imi Yanamura, who directed 3 episodes. Things that they've done in art department. They did like The Killing Joke. They did Onyx Equinox. A lot of these people did Onyx Equinox. That's another Crunchyroll original series.
Mm-hmm.
Director, almost nothing.
Yeah, this to me, it feels so similar to back when we found out about X-Arm being developed by a VFX team, you know, as opposed to an animation studio. Where
right.
Like there's this weird misfit of like skills to needs here. Yeah, like this,
and then
I don't know, like this to me doesn't come across as a concept that's like we need someone who has a lot of like marketing power, but it sure as hell is probably how we heard about this at all, right? Like,
yep,
people know about this show enough to review bomb it after caring enough about it, like, and I'll bet that the review bombers include people who wanted the show to be like the next, you know, She-Ra or the Owl House or Steven Universe of like, you know, like a high bar like leap in terms of progressive media, and then they were disappointed. If they knew sort of the makeup and resources of what was at hand here, then they probably could have noticed, like, yeah, let's not get our hopes up. But regardless, they did, and then maybe they feel shafted out of that. On the other hand, of course, then there's like the bigots who are just doing what bigots do. But yeah, from both of these angles, like, I just don't know why someone would connect the dots and think what we need here is someone who's good with like high volume, low production value, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
I mean, maybe it was convenience. I don't know. That's
Well,
possible too. We know that the
and
show
like,
had some rough timing, so yeah.
but you also have like you had like Amalia Lavari, who is one of the head writers for Over the Garden Wall,
Mm-hmm.
which is an insanely well written show.
Yeah.
But the thing is she didn't do most of the episodes. The one that did most of the episodes that I liked was Kate McVeigh and Crystal Peluso, and they have almost no writing experience outside of a couple things,
Mhm.
right? Like,
Yeah.
like Katie McVeigh, who is one of the writers of High Guardian Spice, is Amaryllis.
Mhm.
So like I liked her in basically everything she did.
Yeah.
But she was the writer for like just this. So it's like you have these people with these talents, but where is it going? And if your director has only basically in recent memory directed like corporate CGI low budget stuff, they might not know exactly what to do with this.
Mm-hmm.
I think that this show could have used one more rewrite. I really do. I think that if this show was given the time to go through it one more time, go through it script by script, figure out what's going on, I think you might have had something. I really, really, really do.
Mm-hmm.
But other than that, I don't know.
Yeah.
This show is I think a mess from top to bottom in production and budget.
Yeah.
It is really weird that they managed to get like I know voice actors will do whatever pays, right? They're unless you get to like Matt Mercer, like Troy Baker levels of fame. Even Troy Baker will sometimes do like an additional voice in some weird shit,
Mm-hmm.
right? Like even if you're pretty prolific, you do whatever. But having people like Stephanie Shea or Cam Clark come in, and do these things, I like that they have that kind of star power going for them. But why didn't they I understand wanting to find new talent. I really do. But it just confuses me.
But
and
then this show, it can't be marketed like that, right? Because here's
Right.
the thing: like if you're doing Crunchyroll originals, that's attached to Crunchyroll, and Crunchyroll's big. Like it is, if not big on its own, at least big enough to be subsumed by Verve. And so, like, you don't get to make an indie cartoon under the guise of a Crunchyroll original. You're just kind of not allowed to by perception. In the same sense that like, Disney's not allowed to kick out something that is like, oh hey, we got some up and comers to try something and it's their first time, it's rough, but hey, check it out. No one's going to care or bother, because if they are paying attention to what Disney's doing, it's because they want like the most polished shit that they can find. Like, they want that money to have a direct correlation with quality.
Right.
And so yeah, it's a rough break. Like I don't know whether to like I'm not going to applaud Crunchyroll for like putting money towards this, because fuck Crunchyroll as a corporation. Like I don't care enough about what they care. Fuck. It's weird. It's complicated. I don't get the impression that they're doing this because they just care about like newcomers and expanding the industry. Not when they'll also get something like Gibieto, which is on the total opposite end of this, where they have like, star power plugged into it at every possible corner and all of it fails. So the range that they've presented to us suggests that this isn't about, like just having like a little independent wing of development here with, like that lower bar and like growth intention. This just feels messy.
It does. and like you look at the actresses that and actors that play in this. So our main character is Brianna Leone, who is mostly a live actor. She has a couple of voice acting. She did some Fallout 76 voices, but she's only been in a handful of things, and this is her only animated show that she's done. And she was like the second unit director of specific shows, not necessarily an actress. Lauren White, who plays Sage, has only been in the Lego movie as like additional voices.
Mm-hmm.
The Lego Ninjago movie, the Lego Batman movie, that's it. Amber Romero, who is Parsley, has done quite a bit, but she's also like a martial artist.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, okay. And then like I said, like Katie McVeigh, who plays Amaryllis, was like the writer of this show. And then Michelle Deco actually has a little bit of video game, but it seems like it's mostly like either low budget like mobile games, or she was in Kill La Kill for a little bit just as the additional voices. She was additional voices in Toradora, so she has a little bit more experience in voice acting. And I even said that too. I said I think that she did. I was like, she's definitely done voice acting before. But these people are not high profile voice actresses. I think they did the best with what they could do, and I think they got pretty far and the further it went, the better it became. But god damn, or there's some just incredibly poor voice line reads.
Mm-hmm.
And I just feel like it could have just been better if they just did it again.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think if they were given the chance to essentially practice while hired, then perhaps this would feel more comfortable throughout the entire length of the show. And there would still obviously be conflicts with how, like, the show, gradually becomes more intense and mature, and the writing quality kind of spiking here and there. But that would be this feels like a controllable problem because we have seen their progression. We've seen them really start to nail it near the end, or at least, like, to the point where we stopped worrying about it, which is huge for this show and how rough that it began. If they could have been given that, like, that practice time to essentially, like, build into their characters, as opposed to doing that at the start of episode 1 recording, that I feel like this would have been a very different result. Maybe not one that would save it, I don't think that's the case. But regardless, I think that's a reasonable thing to ask, especially if they want this as some kind of, new up-and-coming project to succeed. They either did not have the resources or did not grant the resources for that to happen.
Mm-hmm. And then one more voice that I want to mention.
Yeah.
Snapdragon is voiced by Julia Kay. Julia Kay is she is a trans woman, and she's a comic artist and an author. Cool. I think that she did a pretty decent job voicing Snapdragon. Mm-hmm. But it's one of those things where it's like, were these people hired because there were no other trans voice actors or voice actresses that were available, or were these people that tried out? It's just like, you don't know, right? And not that she didn't do a good job. She absolutely did a good job at Snap. But I'm just curious as to how they picked these people to do the voices.
Yeah, well, it's something that we wouldn't know in any other production unless they felt like sharing, and we'll probably not know here. I don't think we need to worry about it,
But she has a comic called Super Late Bloomer, and or Super Late Bloomer is a personal collection of the early months during Julia Kay's gender transition and My Life in Transition, which is about her personal experience. Which is so I think I've read some of her comics and they're pretty good. Mm-hmm. And like I said, the talent that went into this is there. I've sent you a couple of the of Ray Rodriguez's original arts.
Yeah, and I do like them quite a bit more.
I do. I like them.
They
I
look
also
animation ready, and they still have like, a lot of expression to them.
I really like Time's outfit better. I just think having the leggings looks so much better. Mm-hmm. But other than that, that's about all I have to say about High Guardian Spice. I really want a second season. I do. I want them to. I want them to be able to work with the people. It seems like this was someone's first attempt to do it, and they fell into it. It's not a good show, but it has so much potential. There's a lot of substance there that wasn't explored. There's also a robotic octopus that I did not mention, and holy fucking shit, why was there a robotic octopus? That bled blood.
Yeah, that... It took me a moment, but now I'm remembering it too. Oh, Jesus Christ. Alright. Themes. Love is mutually beneficial, but it requires loving yourself too. That's mostly it.
I think this show's gonna get hella anti-capitalist as we go forward. Spooky City seems like a fucking... just an absolute, very non-muted version of capitalism. It just seems very exploitive, just outwardly. The villains that we saw looked very much like Monopoly men. So I could see that happening a little bit more in season 2,
especially because we hardly even see or talk about money in the bulk of the show. It's very much a non-topic. Yeah. Okay. Other things. There is a strong current in the show about being yourself, in the sense of not following up on generational legacies and things like that. I think that's one of the show's stronger points. One of the things that it tends to get right more consistently. It tends not to sway from those. There are no cases where they backstep and they're like, well, actually it's good for you to do this or that. Maybe the closest thing they get is Sage compromising and using both new magic and old magic, but I think that's also, well handled in the show in how new magic is set up. Where new magic kind of, just directly... It's like technology in a very broad way, where it's this is something that does make things more convenient, and it's more automated, but it can also be used, to do all sorts of harm based on who created it and for what purpose, So it's this could be an aid to people, or it could be destructive, which is very true to life. We have engineering friends who have told us how difficult it can be to find a job unless you're willing to go make missiles, in which case it's very easy to find a job. So yeah.
Wait, did you just make a Raytheon joke?
Not intentionally, no.
Did you say just go and make missiles?
Yeah, well, because I've had someone tell me I'm looking for engineering jobs, and I can't find any that aren't military based.
Oh, it's 100% Raytheon. Raytheon is they develop so many fucking missile guidance systems, and they try and take everyone.
Mm-hmm. So if you're an aspiring engineer out there, keep listening to us and don't listen to Raytheon.
Or do listen to Raytheon if they give us money.
No.
I'm stealing a joke from another podcast. I'm not going to do that.
Okay. See, it's okay to steal jokes, but it's not okay to take money from Raytheon. That's what we stand for here. Listen, if I can word for word lift the image text from the share zone to start our episode off, then you can have a little bit of Raytheon as a treat. Okay.
Okay, let's talk about some hypotheticals.
Okay, let's say we're gonna reinvent High Guardian Spice as some other form of media. Um, what what media form do you choose, and what changes do you make in the process?
I thought you were going to say, what media do you choose and why are you going to make it a radio drama? Um, no, I honestly think I actually just sent you a few comics. One comic that Ray Rodriguez did on his website, and it is infinitely more charming and funny than almost any other scene in the show. Um, I think it would make a really, really good graphic novel series, like and like the same vein as like Lumberjanes, or like where it's just kind of like, I just think it would.
Mhm.
I think it's so meant to have those quick comic beats that you don't need to work on timing because your readers put the timing into it. I think the character designs make for really, really good stills. You wouldn't need to do a shit ton of animation for it. That's hard work. I think it would make a really good graphic novel.
Mhm. Yeah, I thought about the same thing. I wonder if it would work well as a um hold on, we need to stop everything because I was looking at Ray's comics, and yes, they're quite charming. I like them. But in one bit, Ray goes out to smoke, to get his mind off things, and that made me realize that we did not mention the the weed brownie joke that Slime Boy makes.
There's a fucking weed brownie joke in that. I forgot about it. And it's, I mean, the whole, first off, High Guardian Spice is absolutely the name of some marijuana that you can buy. Let me get some of that High Guardian Spice. But yeah, there's a part where Neppy Cat's just freaking out, and Slime Boy just goes, he probably had too many of those special brownies. Fuck. That definitely
Definitely was a thing, huh?
Yeah.
we were in hysterics about it when it originally happened.
We were in hysterics about it because one of us said, when's the weed joke gonna happen?
Yeah.
We were waiting for it. We were like, when is it gonna happen? Where's the weed
and
joke?
We knew it was gonna be Slime Boy, but
it was absolutely gonna be Slime Boy. And Slime Boy made the weed joke. So there's a weed joke in High Guardian Spice. I also think that this show would make a really good, like, if you just, like, I know this is going to be a really fucking weird comparison. Bear with me. Could be a lot like VeggieTales. Okay. I think it would be very good as, like, a couple, like, 1 hour specials where they put, like, a lot of focus on, like, one arc and then move on.
Yeah, I agree with that.
I think that because of how much nonsense they throw in here, I think if they were able to really, really hammer down the specifics, it could be really good, and you wouldn't need to put so much time into trying to create so much animation.
Yeah, I agree with that.
What about you, besides graphic novel and VeggieTales?
I almost think a novel, just straight up, just like writing, could work, because I think some of our biggest issues are with the world, where like the world is the least interesting part to us. So if you're in writing and you're not describing like how the buildings look, then it's up to someone's imagination what they fill in, and likely they'll put something generic there anyways. And if not, they'll come up with something better. So like, I think that also might have a place with this.
Yeah, that makes sense. I could see a little bit of both. I just wouldn't want to, looking at Ray's original designs for these characters, I just want to see more of that. I think they're so good.
Yeah, I agree.
I really do.
Yeah. Okay, one more hypothetical.
Yeah.
And you surely would see this coming. Let's say hypothetically there's a Slime Boy spinoff.
Hell yeah, there is.
What are you gonna do about it? What are you gonna make? You're in charge, Grant. Up and comer.
It will be a series of short 7-minute episodes in which it starts with Slime Boy waking up and going about his day and accidentally running into someone who needs a new song made, and then Slime Boy will make that song in a very awkward fashion. And I will not give Julian Coster a full script.
So like there's the songs, and then there's like some setup, and then it's improv. Is that it?
No, Julian Coster will know what the other character says, but he has to fill in what Slime Boy is saying in between. And it'll be like Slime Boy says something positive. Slime Boy, like, or
so ad-libbing, yeah,
like,
oh my god.
It'll be like ad-libs. It'll be like Slime Boy mentions his past, but there's nothing else. And then in the next, and that's the first episode. And then once I hear what Julian says, the second episode, if he's like Slime Boy killed a man when he was 7 in self-defense, then I would say like Slime Boy feels regret about killing the man in self-defense, and then he has to go from that, but it also has to tie in to what the next person is going to say, who, by the way, has very direct instructions. I will also be replacing Slime Boy's mic. I will give Julian Coster different mics per episode, ranging from like studio quality mics to a like Nokia cell phone. What would your spinoff be?
I would just ask you. Are you fucking with me? Like, I'm gonna go make a. I would just be like, well, Grant would have an idea about this. Let me go ask him.
I suggest everyone watch High Guardian Spice. I really do. I think everyone should experience it for themselves. I ended up liking it a lot more than I thought I would. I still don't think it's great, but I do think it deserves a second season. It very much does.
Yeah, I'd agree with that.
And that is probably the end of this episode. Whew, it was a long one, but I think we got to say what we got to say. And for the people that wouldn't watch it, we'll get to understand it a little bit better, so that they don't need to watch like our reactions to this weird shit. Mm-hmm. So. Thank you for listening to Familiar Territory. If you liked what we talked about, go check out our other shit. The best thing I always suggest people check out is our 16-minute long best of video. It has a lot of our funniest goofs and gaffs. Our last episode was on Magia Record, which will go into our next episode, which will also be on Magia Record. We'll be continuing that series to talk a little bit more about it. Mm-hmm. Hopefully in preparation for the fourth movie of Madoka. We stream on Twitch every Monday. We're going to be playing Road 96 for the next couple weeks because that game is really good. But we normally stream indie games and Deadly Premonition too. You can follow us on Twitch. You can follow us on Twitch. You can follow us on Twitter at Familiar Territory. We'll post a link in the description. There I tweet random things. I think my last tweet was just golf anime. So that's going to date when we recorded this. But I tweet a lot. I'm not funny, but I think I am.
We spend it all here. And then we compile it down into 16 minutes, which you should go watch.
So go follow us on all those things, or don't, because we are not your dads.